This episode of The Construction Record is brought to you by the Ontario Sewer and Water Main Construction Association. Clean water is everybody's business.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Construction Record podcast. Today, I have a special guest with me. Why don't you introduce yourself and just kind of talk a little bit about some of the work that you do?
Sure. Thanks so much. My name is Lindsay Kearns, and I am the outreach coordinator at the BC Centre for Women in the Trades, which is an organization here in British Columbia that seeks to not just attract women to the trades, but address all the issues that are preventing them from continuing and finding success in their trades careers.
Yeah, and I thought today we would talk about the word community. And I know I've chatted with you before a bit about this, and I know you've been on the tools a long time. And you have a lot of experience in the industry. Why don't you tell me a little bit about what it means for women in construction and the trades to have community, find that community, and to really grow?
Sure. Yeah, of course. I love this topic because it's one that, this is how I got into doing sort of advocacy work around women in trades. Was for myself, I realized that I was lacking a community of peers who really understood a lot about my life. And I love this topic as well because it's one that I've just had some amazing conversations with some of the male workers that I've had apprentices over the years, guys I've gotten to know through work sites, because they've asked about, well, why do you need women in trades meetups? Why do you need women in trades groups? Why would you need any of that? And I tell them about, I ask them about their own experiences. And for myself, when I started in the trades, everyone asked if my dad was an electrician. And I said, I just thought it was so strange. No, he's actually now retired high school principal. And I thought they were just being sexist, assuming that the only reason a woman would be there is if her dad was an electrician. And after I was on the tools for a little while, I realized that actually the truth of the matter was almost every guy I worked with, their dad was an electrician, or their hockey coach was an electrician, or their next door neighbor had been an electrician, or that's how they'd gotten into the trade. So they just assumed that it was the same for me. And that is the sort of community they take for granted, that someone shoulder tapped them and brought them up into this. Same thing with around holidays. Little boys from the time they're very tiny are often given toy tools, and then they're given real tools as they're older. And when there's something broken around the house, they're often included in conversations around how to fix things, right. Maybe even given the chore of taking, the car down to the garage to be looked at by the mechanic. And not everywhere, of course, but in general, in our society, that's just that same sort of inclusion doesn't actually include a lot of girls and women. And it's a sort of peer mentorship that is actually key to finding success in a trades career. It's how you find out about work. It's how you find good deals on tools. It's how you get hand-me-down tools. People give you tools. And, it's how you find out not just where jobs are, but where you can go and get, really, really big guy might have a hard time finding a safety vest. Same thing with a really, really small woman and a safety vest that fits. We need to actually have those connections with people who understand about our lives. And so that for me was, I had this moment after I'd gotten my ticket, which was 7 years into the trade, because I took a bit of time off to have a child. And I realized I needed a community of peers. And so I started organizing meetups here in Victoria. And it was amazing. It definitely was one of those things where if you build it, they will come, because it started a couple people, but we had it every month, and more people started just showing up. And it's not an organized event in that there's no schedule, there's no plan. It's just, we're having burgers, and come and hang out with us.
And there's no agenda or set. It's just.
Yeah. And we've actually had people ask if they can come and present at our meetings. And I always have to kind of say, it's not like that. It's a time and a location, and then it's chaos, and it's wonderful chaos. And we always bring either let's be honest, we'd like to say we have name tags. It always ends up being masking tape and Sharpies. We always put our names and our trade. And if someone new shows up, you ask them to put their name and their trade on their shirt, and you offer to write it for them, and you ask them where they're working and what they're doing. And we encourage students to come too, so that they can have a chance to actually chat with some like real out there, been there for a while, sort of tradey ladies. But that is our opportunity. And that is our opportunity for also, I mean, one of the things that I discovered after going to the trades was how much, I didn't have particularly nice hands before I started in the trades. Like I've always been sort of, I like fixing bikes and gardening and stuff. Mm-hmm. After I started in the trades, the number of times I was like, oh yeah, no, I smashed my hand and I lost a fingernail. Like actually it's gone. And you show that or one of your non-trades friends sees it and she just says, oh my gosh, like I'm worried about you. Your job is really dangerous. Let me help you get in at this entry-level position working for one of the ministries here in the government or something like that.
Wow.
And you show, and like one of your trades friends sees it and she's just like, oh, that happened to me. Do you know I still have a weird ridge in that nail even though it's been 4 years?
Yeah.
And she buoys you up and she makes you feel like, yep, you're having fun and you're getting it done and this is just part of the package and you need that.
Yeah, that kind of support. The way you put it, I didn't even realize it. Like, yeah, just by default, some people are automatically in kind of this sort of, like you said, community. And it looks like, the trades, you guys, you all have had to build one from scratch, it seems.
It really, and there's pros and cons to that. Like, I'm not sitting here saying, and this is absolutely terrible. Obviously, like, I think that everyone who wants to should be given opportunities to try out tools and be included in these conversations from the very beginning. There is something also really beautiful about it being intentional, because it means we don't take it for granted. And the friendships that I have made through my trades community, I mean, like, they are my ride or dies. And our connection is just so much more significant because there's a certain part of my life that they really get when so few people do.
Now, retention is something that's always talked about. It's, it's one thing to get people into the trades, underrepresented groups like women. But it's another thing to have them stay there for long careers. And what sort of role do you think having a community plays in retention and making sure that, people feel welcome and are going to have long, successful, positive careers?
Yeah, that is a really, really good question, especially because of one of the main reasons that women don't stay in the trade has to do with toxic work culture, where you're just not treated as an equal. But the thing is, if you don't come from a background where you have people in your life that you can check in with about situations because they've been through there too. Like if I asked my parents, who are all teachers or librarians, if I told them about something happening at work and asked what they thought, I mean, they would just say, your job sounds horrible. Like, why are you there?
Yeah.
Because I was asked to spend 2 days cleaning out a storage room. And whereas if I ask that to a group of tradeswomen who've been in the trade for a little while, they'll say, okay, well, who else is on your crew right now? Is it winter? Did everyone else get laid off? Are you the bottom of the hierarchy? Because if you're the cheapest worker there, then hell yeah, you are cleaning out the storage room for 2 days. That's your job. And if I didn't have that sense of perspective from people who'd been there, from women who'd been there, like, I might just assume that I'm being treated that way because I'm a woman, because that does happen too. And so that's what we have to look at. You need that sense of context. So when a woman comes to our meetup and we're chatting and I say, oh, what do you do? And she says, oh, I'm a carpenter. And I'd say, oh, like what, you're on this building, or what are you doing? And she said, oh, I'm at this building. And I said, oh, the view from the top floor must be great. And she'll say, oh, actually, I've never been up there. And I said, oh, that's interesting. Like, tell me, like, what does your day look like? And then she'll tell me that she's been doing material handling for the site, all the incoming materials, making sure that it's inventoried and goes out to the right people as the job progresses. And then I find out she's been on that job for 6 months doing just that task. And it's like, okay, so yeah, we need to talk, because that's not okay. That is not how to use an apprentice.
That's not a normal thing.
No. A month? Sure. Honestly, you want to put a low-paid apprentice for a month on materials handling? I actually think that's great. The number of times in my apprenticeship, I had to spend a whole day cleaning out the van of the journey I worked under because it was a mess. And he's like, he's like, someone has to do it. I have so much other work to do. I need this organized. And he said, also, this is how you're going to learn what all of our parts are. because especially I was doing building automation, there's all sorts of specialty relays, specialty little timer devices. He's like, yep, organize them, catalog them, throw out all the trash. Let me know what's in here.
You're going to know what everything looks like because you've been through them so many times.
Yeah. And so that work is absolutely crucial. It has to get done at some point. It's very valuable to spend, honestly, like I said, big construction site, even a month doing that, I'll say, yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
If I find out that you're the only woman on the crew and you've been doing that for 6 months, oh, there's a bunch of us who are going to come and settle down with you and have a little talk and say, hi, like, what's going on with your employer? Who can you talk to? How can we help you? Because this isn't okay. No one should be treated that way as an apprentice. Like that is just, that's a waste of an apprenticeship, and we got to help you out because we don't want you to end up getting your red seal and not being able to do your job. Like that is in no one's best interest. And unfortunately that does happen. And statistically, it seems to happen more to women.
Mm-hmm. And you don't want people just, laying in bed at night thinking, am I crazy? Is this okay? Exactly. Or is this normal? Is this not normal? Because I've never worked in construction or been on a job. I would have no idea unless somebody told me that's not fair treatment or that's not appropriate. Unless you have someone who, has 10 years, experience, telling you, hey, that's not how it goes. That's interesting to be able to get that context.
Once I was when I was an entry-level apprentice, I don't know, it was a couple years in maybe, it was a snowstorm here in South Vancouver Island. Doesn't happen very often. We got a call to go and fix something at a little water treatment plant in another town just to the west of here. My journey calls and he said, I'm actually going to pick you up because I had a little tiny car. And he said, okay, I don't want you to drive out there. He's like, I'm going to pick you up in my work van. And I said, okay. So I bundle up and I get my tools and he picks me up in the gas station at the corner and we drive out there. It's an hour. We get to this place. It's up this dirt road. We have to unlock the gate, go up this hill. And then he immediately loses track of where the road is because it's covered in snow.
Oh.
And the van slides into a snowbank and gets stuck. So he says, oh, okay. So he grabs his tools and he says, come on, come out. We walk the rest of the way up the hill to the little sewage treat or the water treatment facility. We go inside and he sets down his laptop and his tools and he's like, okay, well, I'm going to log on here. And he just kind of looks at me and I said, okay, I brought my backpack of tools. And he said, great, just outside the door, there's a snow shovel. So here's the keys to the van. He said, I need you to go dig it out and get it back onto the road, turn it around so it's easy for us to get out the gate. I spent 4 hours doing that. Well, he fixed the automation system on the wastewater plant. And I was like, oh, okay, that's what we did. Like that was actually how that was my entire workday. And then we drove back into the big city. And I was like, yep, that's what I got paid to do today. Because sometimes that's why you have an apprentice.
To shovel snow. Yeah. Tell me a bit about, you're doing these meetups, you're, growing this community, and then the pandemic hits. And, obviously physical meetups become very difficult. Tell me a bit how you had to pivot some of those efforts.
Yeah, it was actually personally for myself, having just come into this role where because of the work I'd done here in Southern Vancouver Island, through Facebook had gotten to know some people in different parts of the province. And it was one of the things that was one of the reasons why the Center for Women in the Trades hired me. And that was on my work plan, was for 2020, as I was going to try to, there was already regular meetups happening in some cities, but I was going to work with whatever grassroots organizers, make sure we do the promotion for them. We teach them how to talk to different people to make sure that they have the capacity to do these as anything they needed.
You're ready to go.
We were ready to go. Yep. We had 2 in January. We had one in Duncan, just north of here, and then we had one in Comox, mid-island. So that was a 3-hour drive. For that one, I actually went to it. I put the call out to my local group here and said, okay, I'm going to go to a meetup with tradeswomen in Comox. Does anyone want to come? It's on a Sunday evening. And 2 of my trades friends here who came to the meetups when they first started here, they came with me for the road trip up there, and it was so fun just to go. And there ended up being, I think, 16 of us at this little pub in Comox, and it was amazing. It was so great. And yeah, then the pandemic hit, and it was like, oh, okay. So I guess we're not doing this. We moved pretty quickly into starting a Zoom-based meetup. But we definitely lost, I have to say, a lot of that sort of momentum. And we honestly kind of lost some of those people because they were very invested in this being something that was for them by them. And that is one of the drawbacks of having a Zoom-based one, is that, I'm kind of acting as the host, and I try my best to put on my best party host sort of hat and introduce people when they come in and, ask questions and say, oh, hey, so-and-so is here. Did you know that so-and-so just started in your trade or whatever? But yeah, it's a very different vibe is the main thing. When we have our in-person meetups, they are a lot of just chaotic joy. I don't know if you know, but a lot of people in construction have hearing problems, which means we yell, especially when we're excited.
Yeah.
They are so loud when we have our meetups at the burger joint here. And it's one of the reasons we meet at the burger joint is because there's so many screaming children there that it's fine as long as we don't swear. No one minds that there's a whole bunch of loud tradeswomen yelling at each other. And you can't do that in a Zoom meetup. Everyone has to kind of take turns talking, which on one hand, it's a little sad because I love that frenetic energy. On the other hand, it's amazing for allowing opportunities for people who are a bit more introverted, maybe wouldn't come to the meetup if there was one local to them because it might be a bit overwhelming. Whereas when you're in a Zoom call, you have to kind of take turns and you kind of do a round. And, if someone says something that resonates with you, you can jump in, but there's still an opportunity to take turns in a way that's a bit, I like to hope anyway that it's more welcoming to certain people. I know it's not going to meet everyone's needs, but we're doing the best we can.
Right. Tell me a little bit about, I think it's opened it up for maybe people. I know you mentioned like the 3-hour drive. So do you think you probably have maybe lost some people, but do you think you maybe have gained other people who maybe are from, more remote communities, or they have other obligations that make it difficult to maybe physically join at a meetup, even if there were some?
Yeah, definitely. My friend Lisa, she lives in Quesnel, and she used to drive to the Prince George meetup, which had been going on for years. Actually, myself and Rochelle both started the meetups in our individual cities at the same time. We didn't know each other. We're friends now, but we started them about, 5 years ago now. But Lisa Scott heard about them, and she was driving from Quesnel to Prince George to go to these meetups once a month. And now she can just come from her computer, and sometimes she comes, she's at work. If it's the evening and she has an evening shift, she can take a break and actually come on the computer, which is always really fun to actually have a chance to see somebody, not just when they're lying on their couch, but when they're actually, still wearing their Carhartt overalls. And the same thing with a couple other people who live in places like, Lillooet or Hope, or places that, not absolutely remote places, but there is not going to be a meetup that's very convenient for them to get to. And this is a chance for them to actually come and just chat. And it's casual. It's not like it's not like a class where you have to do any homework or sign up for anything. It's come as you are, and just tell us who you are and tell us what your life's like. And if we've had some people who've come to almost every single one who didn't come to meetups before, and so it's really nice. It's like, oh, this is my friend Lindsay, the RV tech, who I've still never met in person, but I've gotten to know her over the past year because of the meetups.
I guess wrapping up here, how can tradeswomen find these meetups and get involved? How can they get plugged into this community if they're listening right now?
Well, and one of the drawbacks of all of this is how much it does rely on having stable internet, which frankly, at this point, I think we should all agree should be like a regulated utility because we need it in order to live our lives.
I agree.
So that is a bit of a barrier, is making sure you actually have stable internet and a device that you can access it on. We do rely on Facebook a great deal to spread the word. However, we do put it out on Instagram. I think it goes on our Twitter as well. This is the Center for Women in the Trades, BCCWITT, BCCWITT on Instagram and on Facebook. And that's where we publicize it. And so there is a Facebook event page, but you don't need to be on Facebook to see the event page. And the link to Zoom is there. Or you can always, people email me all the time, outreach@womenbuildbc.ca. And I just send them the link. And yeah, and the only other thing is they were every 2 weeks until last month. And then the truth of the matter is I am getting burnt out. So now we've moved them to only being once a month. So it's the last Tuesday of every month is the virtual meetup. Yeah.
All right. Well, I want to thank you so much for chatting with me, Lindsay. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast, and hopefully people can find out about these meetups and find that community that they need.
Yeah, I hope so too. That's really great. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks.
This episode of The Construction Record is brought to you by the Greater Toronto Sewer and Water Main Contractors Association. Clean water, our goal, our future.